The truth is in the files.
Was the Enfield Poltergeist truly a demonic entity, or something far more mundane, yet equally disturbing? For decades, cinematic portrayals have cemented one narrative, but the real evidence whispers a different tale. We're about to expose the shocking truths that the big screen hid from you, forcing a complete re-evaluation of this notorious haunting. Welcome to the Conjuring Files, where we go beyond Hollywood horror to uncover the documented, the disputed, and the deeply human stories behind the world's most famous paranormal cases. I'm your guide, and today we're stepping into 284 Green Street, Enfield, a modest London council house where, in 1977, two young sisters allegedly became the epicenter of one of the most controversial hauntings in modern history. Thanks to The Conjuring 2, millions know the image, Janet Hodgson levitating above her bed, a growling voice snarling "Get out" through clenched teeth, furniture flying across rooms. It's terrifying. It's iconic. But here's what the movies left out. None of it happened exactly like that. In reality, there were no dramatic levitations caught on camera. No demonic priest showdowns. No roaring entity named Bill Wilkins commanding souls. Instead, there were hours of tape-recorded sessions, skeptical investigators, and a family living in poverty caught between genuine fear and mounting media frenzy. Even the famed levitation? Witness accounts describe Janet being lifted slightly off the couch, once, by an unseen force. Photographs show her mid-jump, not floating. And those guttural voices? Audio experts later noted inconsistencies, some sounding suspiciously like a child mimicking adult tones. But that doesn't mean nothing happened. Over 30 witnesses, including police officers, journalists, and paranormal researchers, reported knocks, moving objects, and unexplained voices. The Society for Psychical Research spent 2 years investigating. Some believed. Others didn't. So what really occurred in that Enfield home? Was it a rare poltergeist, a burst of psychokinetic energy tied to adolescent stress? A tragic case of attention-seeking amplified by trauma? Or something else entirely? The truth is messier than any movie dares to show. And far more human. Next, the secret recordings the films ignored, and what they reveal about the girls' private moments when the cameras were off. Behind the headlines and Hollywood dramatizations were real people living in a cramped council house in North London, struggling to make ends meet. The Hodgson family wasn't wealthy. They weren't seeking fame. In 1977, single mother Peggy Hodgson was raising 4 children alone after her husband left. Money was tight. The house was drafty. And when strange knocks began echoing through the walls, they didn't call the press, they called their neighbor. But once the story leaked, everything changed. Reporters camped outside. Cameras rolled constantly. And 2 young girls, Janet, 11, and Margaret, 13, suddenly became the center of a global spectacle. What the movies never showed was the exhaustion in Peggy's eyes, the fear in Janet's voice during private moments, or the way Margaret withdrew as the chaos grew. Because this wasn't just a haunting, it was a pressure cooker. Psychologists later noted that poltergeist cases often cluster around adolescents under emotional stress. And these girls had plenty: grief, instability, poverty, and the sudden weight of being labeled possessed. Audio tapes from quiet nights, when investigators thought the recorder was off, revealed Janet whispering, "I just want it to stop," and Margaret crying, "They don't believe us anyway." Peggy Hodgson, meanwhile, became the unsung anchor of the entire ordeal. She never sought attention. She turned down book deals. She shielded her children as best she could, even as skeptics accused her of orchestrating a hoax for rent money. But those who knew her described her as fiercely protective, deeply religious, and utterly overwhelmed. One journalist recalled her saying, "I don't care if it's ghosts or grief, I just want my girls to sleep through the night." And yet, the media painted her as either a saint or a schemer. never just a mother trying to survive. The truth is, the Enfield case wasn't about demons under the stairs. It was about a family caught in a storm of belief, doubt, and public obsession. The knocks may have been real or imagined, but the trauma was undeniable. Because when the world decides you're part of a ghost story, you stop being seen as human. Next, the secret audio tapes that changed everything, and why even seasoned investigators couldn't agree on what they heard. From the very beginning, not everyone believed the Enfield Poltergeist. In fact, some of the loudest doubters weren't skeptics. They were paranormal investigators themselves. Early on, members of the Society for Psychical Research grew suspicious. They noted inconsistencies. Objects moved only when Janet was nearby. Voices emerged only during recorded sessions. And crucially, no phenomena occurred under controlled conditions. Then came the forensic scrutiny. Photographs of Janet levitating. Experts revealed she was mid-jump, captured at the peak of a leap, not floating. Audio analysts examined the infamous growling voice attributed to an old man named Bill Wilkins. Spectrograms showed the vocal patterns matched a young girl's range, just distorted, strained, and layered with reverb. One BBC sound engineer concluded, "It's mimicry. Skilled, yes, but mimicry." But the most damning evidence came years later. In private interviews, Janet Hodgson admitted to faking some of the activity, like knocking on walls or staging object movement, especially when attention waned. She never claimed all of it was fake. Most of it was real, she insisted. But when people stopped believing, I wanted them to see something. That admission fueled decades of debate. Was the entire case a hoax? Or was it a mix of genuine distress and childish performance? A traumatized child amplifying real fear with stage theatrics? Even respected investigator Maurice Gross, who lived in the house for months, remained conflicted. He believed the core phenomena were authentic, but acknowledged Janet's embellishments. His notes read, "She lied about small things which made people doubt the big ones." And that's the tragedy of Enfield. Because of a few staged moments, the entire case was dismissed by many. Even though over 30 independent witnesses reported unexplained events they couldn't fake, police officers heard knocks with no source. Neighbors saw chairs slide across floors. Journalists witnessed doors slam with no wind. So was it real? Or was it a perfect storm of adolescent stress, media pressure, and a child's desperate need to be believed? The answer may lie not in proving ghosts exist, but in understanding why we so badly want them to. Next, the secret recordings that captured something even skeptics couldn't explain, and why they remain locked away today. While Hollywood turned Enfield into a ghost story, the real investigators treated it like a crime scene, one where the suspect might not even exist. At the center were two men, Maurice Gross, a grieving engineer who'd lost his daughter just months before, and Guy Leon Playfair, a seasoned paranormal researcher with a scientific mind. They didn't arrive with holy water or exorcism rites. They came with tape recorders, notebooks, and an almost obsessive need to document everything. For over 2 years, they logged more than 2,000 incidents. They sat for hours in silence, waiting. They rewound tapes endlessly, hunting for anomalies. Gross even moved into the Hodgson home for weeks, sleeping on the couch, watching, listening. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing answers in a world that had taken his child. But their work went far beyond knocking walls. They consulted spiritualists who claimed the house sat on a ley line of psychic energy. They explored theories of recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. The idea that emotional stress, especially in adolescence, can unconsciously manifest as physical disturbances. Others suggested residual haunting, where trauma imprints on a location like an echo. What's rarely shown is how frustrating it was. Weeks would pass with no activity. Then, during a live BBC broadcast, a chair slid across the floor, captured on national TV. Yet skeptics dismissed it as a string trick. The team knew better, but proving it was impossible. Even today, experts remain divided. Parapsychologists like Dr. Deborah Hyde argue the case shows classic signs of poltergeist activity linked to family stress. Skeptics like Joe Nickell call it a blend of fantasy, attention-seeking, and adult credulity. Meanwhile, audio specialists still debate whether the Bill Wilkins voice could truly be faked without modern tech. But here's what both sides agree on: something happened in that house. Whether it was psychological, environmental, or something rarer, the emotional reality was undeniable. Families don't endure that level of scrutiny, sleepless nights, and public ridicule for nothing. Because in the end, the real mystery of Enfield isn't whether a ghost spoke through a child. It's why so many people, believers and doubters alike, were willing to sit in the dark just to hear it try. Next, the sealed archives, the lost tapes, and why some files may never see the light of day.
Decades after the knocks faded and the cameras left, the Hodgson family never truly escaped Enfield. Janet and Margaret grew up under the shadow of global infamy, branded as either victims or frauds, rarely just sisters. Peggy Hodgson, the mother who shielded them through it all, refused interviews for years, saying only, "We lived it. You watched it." She passed away in 2018, still insisting something unexplainable happened in that house. Janet, now in her 50s, has spoken openly about the toll, the bullying, the disbelief, the weight of being forever known as the possessed girl. Yet she's never fully recanted. "People want it to be all fake or all real," she once said. But life isn't that simple. And that complexity is exactly why Enfield endures. Long before The Conjuring 2, this case reshaped parapsychology. It forced researchers to develop stricter protocols for poltergeist investigations. It sparked debates in academic journals about the link between trauma and anomalous phenomena. Even today, it's cited in studies on suggestibility, childhood coping mechanisms, and the power of media narrative. In pop culture, Enfield became the blueprint for the real haunted house genre, inspiring documentaries, podcasts, and even stage plays. But its greatest legacy is how it exposed our hunger for absolutes. We want ghosts to be real or hoaxes to be proven. But Enfield refuses to choose. It lives in the grey, a mix of possible fraud, probable distress, and moments so strange, even skeptics pause. Audio tapes still exist, some locked in private archives, where voices shift mid-sentence, where knocks sync with no human movement. Researchers continue analysing them. No consensus emerges. So what do you believe? Was Enfield a tragic performance by a grieving child? A rare eruption of unconscious psychic energy? Or something older, darker, and still waiting in that North London house? In 2026, the case remains unresolved, not because we lack evidence, but because it challenges us to hold two truths at once, that people lie and that some mysteries resist explanation. If this deep dive into the real Enfield poltergeist unsettled you, moved you, or made you question what you thought you knew, do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to the Conjuring Files, and share it with someone who dares to sit with uncertainty. Because sometimes, the most honest answer isn't it's real or it's fake. It's we don't know. And maybe that's enough. The truth is in the files.